All right, everybody, shalom, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show. That's right, we haven't been live in a little bit, and we're going to be live right in just a few minutes with Rabbi Shimshon Nadel. We're going to be answering all of your questions about Pesach, not all of them, actually, but some of them. And we're just going to wait for everybody to join us. As you join us, let me know how the sound is, and how it's looking for you, and how it's coming in for you. Oh, you know what? I just realized that I might be... I just realized that I need to make a little change here. In terms of I might be lost for a second. I'll be right back because I'm going to go off of Wi-Fi and get on the wire here. Let's see if we lost you, if we're still there. Rabbi Shimshon, are you there still?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. We're just having everybody join up. That's what we do. We just wait for everybody to join us as we're going to have this discussion. And let's just start it up. Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live from Judea to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. Shalom and welcome to our post-elections Israel, which does not mean that we have yet a government. We're not ready for a government yet because we need to make coalitions, and we need to figure it out, and we need to count all the missing votes still, and all the double envelopes. These are a lot of technical terms inside baseball for trying to make a government here in Israel. The Jewish people are complex people, and our law is complex, both our Jewish halachic law, and so too how we form a government here in our beloved Holy Land. But I could say to you that I am myself very excited about the results of the election. I think that the national camp and the Torah camp did very, very well yesterday. And now it's the effort to put it all together and make it into Kabbalah together and make it into a government with all of the various personalities and tensions and ideological tensions and political tensions that exist. But yesterday was a great day. It happened to be the day that was the splitting, no, not the splitting of the Red Sea, but rather when the Jordan stopped, when the Jordan River stopped and let Joshua and his nation, the nation of Israel, come into the land of Israel. That was the 10th of Nisan. And so too, we actually have a kind of mini holiday where we celebrate here the first aliyah of the nation to the land of Israel, not the first aliyah of the first Jew, which is Abraham, but rather the nation coming in as a whole into the land of Israel and becoming the sovereign here. So that's the 10th of Nisan. And with yesterday's election, I was baking matzah because with the elections yesterday and all that, we actually have the beginnings of Jewish nationhood, which is through the holiday of Pesach, Passover, where the Jewish people become a nation, the exodus from Egypt, splitting of the Red Sea, on our way to Sinai. That's what this period that's starting in just a few days, but really has already begun, because Pesach is not just about Passover, it's about the preparations for Passover. And on top of that, so in order to prepare for Passover, what do you need? You need matzah. And yesterday I had the great zchut, the great merit to bake matzah. And I do this. I've been doing this for many, many years now. I even got to take my brother yesterday and my daughter Leah, and we baked matzahs yesterday. If you go to my Facebook page, you can see a video of what it looks like a little bit. And it was a great, great honor. And there's nothing more stabilizing, right? There's nothing more true and unchanging and unflinching than the eternity of the Exodus, remembering the Exodus from Egypt and commemorating it through the eating of matzah and also the baking of matzah. It happens to be that my grandparents, great-grandparents, that were destroyed in the Holocaust in the town of Ostrowitz in Poland were bread and matzah bakers. And so that tradition of baking matzah is very, very important to us. At the same time, as we were baking matzah, I had my headphones on at 10 p.m. in order to listen to the first exit polls. So I was mixing shul and state by baking ancient matzah, but listening to Israel's modern election, and I was reporting to everybody what was coming in at 10 p.m. when the first exit polls were coming out. Now, that was all preparation for Pesach, but this year's Pesach is also complex, and that's because as complex as it is every year with all the laws of Pesach, we also have the additional challenge this year, or I don't know, blessing, that Passover, the night of Seder, falls out on Saturday night. For observant Jews, this means all kinds of technical preparations that we don't have to do in other years, because, you're not allowed to cook on the Shabbat. And so how do you prepare food? How do you make it warm for Saturday night, for the Seder, etc., etc., etc. Whenever I have halachic issues, I turn to my one of my rabbis, a colleague and a friend, and also a classmate, and also somebody who has grown into being one of the great rabbis of Yerushalayim, which is, I think, a great zchut, a great merit, and that's Rabbi Shimshon Nadel. Let's bring him into the show. Rabbi Shimshon, shalom and welcome.
Hi, shalom Yishai. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Today. No.
Indeed, you're busy and I'm busy, but I really appreciate that you made time from your busy schedule to join us today. And that's because Israelis, Jews, and lovers of Israel around the world are perplexed by how to handle Pesach this year. So I wanted to turn to you and really discuss with you the steps. I mean, there's so many questions that they literally sent out here in my community a flow chart of how to deal with the coming days. So let me just bring up that flow chart actually and look at it and start asking you questions vis-a-vis that very flow chart. Here's my flow chart. Here it is. Wait, wow. Can you see it? Okay, yeah, you can't see it too well. But anyway, the bottom line is
I sent out an email to members of my synagogue, but I wasn't so fancy. I didn't have time for a flow chart. These days before Pesach, it's like tax season for rabbis. We're a little busy, inundated with questions and things. So I don't make any flow charts, but I did send out an email.
All right. Well, I want you to know there's a lot of people listening. Lou is here, and he's one of my producers for the show. He says, Shalom Yishai, video and sound looks great. So thank you very much, Lou from Modi'in.
Shalom, Lou.
And Mark says, Boker Tov from Manchester, England. And then we have our friend Kamlesh, who says hi from Mauritius. Have you ever been to
Mauritius? I think.
Yeah, Mauritius. Have you been there?
No, one of the places I'd like to be, but have not been yet.
Is there a Jewish community in Mauritius?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Kamlesh.
Right, because what people don't know is that in your other when you take off your Clark Kent clothing, you're also a super traveler of Jewish communities around the world. Am I right, Rabbi Shimshon? So
I've not yet been to Mauritius. So.
All right, okay, we'll get out there as well. Well, anyway, let's and Batya says Boker Tov. Batya Mira. So we got people from all over the world joining us right now. And if you have specific questions, please feel free to write them on however you're viewing this. But let's start with Yom Chamishi, this Thursday, which is really tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I may, Yishai, I'd like to start with the story.
Go ahead.
We rabbis have a lot of stories. The story is told about this very pious woman living in a little shtetl, a little village in Europe, by the name of Yetta Dvaisha. Very scrupulous in her performance of mitzvot, very exacting. And her family notices that at the Seder table, when everyone's removing 10 drops of wine for the 10 plagues, Yetta Dvaisha removes an 11th drop. And the family's aghast, and they ask her, Yetta Dvaisha, an 11th drop? Was is das? What's going on? And she explained, Bamir, Erev Pesach is oise makeh, which I'll translate from the Yiddish. I don't speak Yiddish, by the way. So for the Yiddish speakers out there listening, you'll bear with me. She said that by me, Erev Pesach, the eve of Passover, before Passover, that's also a makkah. That's also a plague. Okay? Meaning that all the hard work, all the scrubbing and cleaning and preparing and cooking, took such a toll on her. So this pious woman had to remove an additional drop of wine for the additional plague that is Erev Pesach. So, Pesach is always difficult. This Erev Pesach is especially confusing. As you mentioned, Pesach begins on Saturday night, on Motzei Shabbat. So there are all sorts of unique laws that we'll get into together this morning. But it's important not to lose focus, that we have a mitzvah to enjoy and celebrate and rejoice on the holiday. V'samachta b'chagecha, there's a Torah law to rejoice and to celebrate. And the way the Talmud formulates that is that a man is obligated to make sure that his family, his children, his wife is happy. That's how you express this mitzvah. That's how you observe this mitzvah of rejoicing, by rejoicing together with your family and your wife, not putting any burden on your spouse or on your children. The joke is that nowadays, we don't have a Korban Pesach, we don't have a Passover offering, we don't have a Passover sacrifice. So who's the sacrifice nowadays? Our spouse and our children. But it shouldn't be like that. That joke is in poor taste.
I just want to interrupt for a second and say that something that I definitely do is I keep on saying to everybody, let's just be in a great mood. And one of the things that I really recommend, this is a small and simple recommendation that I make, is that throughout the cleaning of the house and the kitchen and all the stuff, put on music. Put on fun music. Let it be a dance. Let it be fun. Let the house reverberate with a certain kind of fun to get into the Pesach thing, so that it's like a sweet slavery and not like an Egyptian bondage.
Right, absolutely, right. Yeah, for many people, our sages teach that one is obligated to feel as if he too left Egypt. So many people joke and they feel like after those days of scrubbing and cleaning and working so hard, they really experience what the bondage of servitude, what slavery in Egypt was like, what the avodat parach, the backbreaking labor was like, and now they come to the Seder table having tasted a little bit of that. But that's not the intent. As I said, just as there's a mitzvah to rid the home of chametz, there's also a mitzvah to celebrate, and it's so important that everyone should be in a good mood and positive. So how sad, how tragic is it if we go into Pesach, this central holiday which celebrates our freedom and really the birth of us as a nation, if we go into it in with kind of a sour taste on our lips.
Well, one of the things that this year gives us is that actually, since the Seder is Saturday night, we'll be a little bit more rested, a little bit more calm. We will have studied some of the stuff that we didn't get a chance to study in the days prior to Pesach. So there is a kind of gift in this year's Matzah Shabbos Saturday night to Passover Seder.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. First of all, I think that the more knowledgeable people are and the more informed they are, in terms of what the law actually requires of an individual, what the halacha actually requires. So the more knowledgeable and the more you understand these laws, the less nervous you have to be, the less anxious you have to be. It's our job as rabbis to make this process as painless and as easy as possible. And again, it should be joyous, and we have to go into the holidays celebrating. So. The more knowledgeable and informed we are, the better understanding we have of these laws, the better prepared we'll be, the less anxious we have to be. And I think that's what we'll do this morning. And as you mentioned, on the one hand, this year presents all sorts of challenges and all sorts of questions of Jewish law because Pesach begins on Saturday night. And there are all sorts of unique halachot that are unique to this year. But at the same time, as you mentioned, it allows us to go into Pesach, in Hebrew, benachat. After having rested up a little bit, and you don't have to run. You don't have to go into Pesach like a chicken without a head.
Usually my wife comes in, Malka comes in like totally just exhausted, and but still she manages to have fun always. But it's like this year's going to be different than all other years. This night is going to be different than all other nights. Now, Rabbi Shimshon, let's get to the meat of it, okay? The folks out there are just chomping at the bit, and they want to understand the meat of things. And it starts, I think, do you think it's fair for me to ask you about starting tomorrow, which is Thursday, okay? For anybody who's listening on my MP3 on the Yishai Fleischer podcast, it starts really already on Thursday with the question of the fast of the firstborn.
Yes, correct. Normally, the fast of the firstborn is observed on Erev Pesach, on the 14th of Nisan, right before Pesach begins, the day before Pesach begins. Pesach begins at night, of course. So this year, because Erev Pesach, Passover Eve, is on Shabbat, and we don't fast on Shabbat, we advance the fast to Thursday. Now, you could say, well, why don't we advance the fast to Friday, right? If it's the day before, we should advance the fast to Friday. But since Friday is a very difficult day, a busy day, we're busy with the Shabbat preparations. Once we're advancing the fast already, we advance it to Thursday. There is, by the way, a suggestion that maybe since we're advancing the fast, we shouldn't have to fast at all this year. There is such a suggestion in the Rishonim, but we don't follow that approach. Instead, we advance the fast to Thursday. And, like in a typical year, most have the custom not to fast and instead to participate in a siyum, which is a completion of a tractate of Talmud or some other significant amount of learning, which usually takes place in the synagogue, and that obviates the need to fast. This is the fast of the firstborn, of course, which is observed by firstborn males who are all thrown into the Nile, as the Torah tells us. So, as a way to commemorate that, there is this custom to fast, but since it only is a custom, and since it's, every year very difficult to observe Erev Pesach, the custom is to obviate the need to fast or to get out of fasting, so to speak, by participating in this siyum, in this celebration of a completion of learning.
Okay, and for those of us following the Daf Yomi cycle, coincidentally, we just finished Talmud Psachim, Masechet Psachim, and so that's a lot of fun. So I'm sure we'll have on Thursday some folks saying a siyum on Masechet Psachim. That was really fun. It was actually, by the way, a great Gemara. It's not scary, wonderful Gemara with lots of great agadatot, lots of fun. Okay. So that was. I
just want to say it is no coincidence. When you learn, you really see the Yad Hashem, the hand of God guiding you. When you learn Torah, all of a sudden you're learning something. Wait a minute, that's quoted in this week's Torah portion. Or wait a minute, we're learning Talmud, and the Talmud is making mention of some upcoming holiday or something maybe related to current events or politics.
That's right.
There's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to Torah learning.
That's right, Rabbi Shimshon Nadel. I've even heard an idea that a friend of mine told me that Daf Yomi, you could always find something from the Daf Yomi that has something to do with today, with the day that you're living your life. You'll find something from it.
It's uncanny. It's uncanny.
Right. That's right. That's really cool. Okay, let's keep going because I want to also release you back to your. I know that you're enjoying this, but I want to release you back to your wife's servitude at some point. Thursday night. Yes. Let's talk about Thursday night and B'dikat Chametz.
Okay. Now, B'dikat Chametz, the search of Chametz in the home is usually carried out the night before Pesach. But as we mentioned, the night before Pesach is Shabbat, it's Friday night. So we advance that as well to Thursday night. By then, the home is clean. We search for Chametz in all areas of our home, anywhere where leaven, where Chametz, where bread could have been brought. If you're a retired couple, empty nesters with no kids around, and you never bring food into your bedroom, there is no need to search in the bedroom. Maybe there is no need even to clean the bedroom. It's only areas where there is chametz. But if you've got your grandchildren that come and visit and get Cheerios everywhere, so maybe you should look under the beds. It's performed Thursday night, as we do in every year, with a blessing, as we do every year. And following the B'dikat Chametz, following the search, we make the nullification, the bitul, as we do every year. The difference is that this year we're going to save over some chametz that you'll eat on Friday, if you still want to eat chametz on Friday, as well as some chametz, maybe some rolls or pitot that you're going to use on Shabbat. We'll talk about the Shabbat meals in a moment, but you're nullifying the chametz which you don't know about at this point, because there's some chametz that you're not going to nullify or declare ownerless, the chametz that you want to enjoy on Friday and Friday night and maybe Shabbat morning as well. Okay? And then fast forward to Friday morning. Friday morning, we burn the chametz, even though really one can own chametz until Shabbat morning. Saturday morning, we burn the chametz Friday morning before the 6th hour, as we do every year. And the reason why we burn the chametz this year on Friday, even though we really don't have to burn it on Friday, we can dispose of it on Shabbat morning. We don't want to get confused for future years. So everyone should take a look on their local calendar from their local synagogue. But in Jerusalem, that would be 11:27.
Right.
So for 11:27 Friday morning.
I remember my Arab neighbors in Ras Al Amud when I lived in Eastern Jerusalem. I'm sorry, that they would drive by and look at us strangely as Jewish men and children stood around a kind of glorified metal garbage can, burning bread in the morning and mumbling some words. But that's what we do. We burn our chametz. So you're saying that we could get rid of the last of our chametz on Shabbat. I think there's another reason why we. What's that?
And we will. We'll explain how you dispose of the chametz on Shabbat.
Right. But we will, but biur chametz, and meaning to say in our town here and all over, there'll be fires and burning of chametz on Friday morning this year.
Correct.
Now, from here, we diverge according to the flow chart. I love this. I love the Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbat flow chart. And it says, by the way, La Ashkenazim, it says. For Ashkenazi Jews, that's funny. But there's two maslulim from here on. It splits into two. What do we call maslulim? Avenues, pathways, divergent paths. And one is maslul kasher lePesach and maslul chametz. Meaning, there is a Friday night there are some people who will choose to totally get rid of chametz already by Friday. That's one direction, and therefore you will eat non-chametz, non-leavened meals. And then there's the option of going, no, allow yourself to eat chametz till the very last moment, which is going to be Saturday morning. So let's talk about the divergent pathways and which one should we choose and why.
Okay. Now, there's a question every year: what do you eat on the Eve of Beza? Right? That question is just like we have the 4 questions in the Haggadah. This is the 5th question. What do we eat? So that's always an issue: what you eat and what you feed your kids who are particularly picky on Erev Pesach.
What do you eat and when do you eat? Right. That's the.
It's especially a question this year when, as we said, Erev Pesach is Shabbat, and we have an obligation to eat 3 meals on Shabbat. And so, how do we navigate that? Okay. So the maslul, as there's one approach that says, no, you can eat chametz and save over some chametz, either some small rolls or pita bread, which is less crumbly, and you don't have to have too much. Just have enough to feed yourself and your family a little bit Friday night and Shabbat morning. Okay, we'll get to Shabbat morning in a moment. But there's one approach that says, yeah, you can have chametz. But then there's another approach that says, wait a minute, my house is clean for Pesach. It's chametz free. It's already kasher lePesach. It's prepared for Passover. I don't want to bring chametz into my home. Okay, and so what do you do? So we'll talk about that as well. There is an option to use what we call matzah ashira, enriched matzah. Okay, and which is not chametz. It's not chametz. Important to point that out, but cannot be used for the mitzvah of eating matzah at the Seder table. So we'll talk about that. I see already Lou is asking if I'm in favor of eating egg matzah on Friday and Shabbat. We'll answer your question in a moment, Lou. But Friday night is less of an issue because Friday night you can still eat matzah. The sages prohibited eating matzah on Erev Pesach, beginning from the morning. There's all discussion in the Rishonim among the medieval sages what time exactly the prohibition on eating matzah begins. But we know we need to be excited for the matzah. We have to eat it with an appetite, with a hunger. So therefore, the day before, the morning, starting from the morning of, on the eve of Passover, we don't eat any matzah. Okay, but that is matzah that can be used for the mitzvah. We'll talk about some other related things in a moment. So, and again, it's because we have to be excited for the matzah. I can't hear you. I'm not hearing you, Yishai.
You know?
Yes.
I got confused. So are we allowed to? So we are not allowed to eat regular plain old Pesach matzah on Friday night, Saturday morning.
Beginning Saturday morning. The prohibition of eating matzah is Erev Pesach, beginning Saturday morning with the sunrise. Okay, there's a whole discussion. Some say maybe it only begins from the midday, but in any case, we assume that it's from the morning already because it's supposed to have the taste of originality. You're supposed to be excited for it and have a hunger for it. You haven't had it in a while. Some people, by the way, already from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, from the beginning of the month of Nisan, won't have matzah. Some already from Purim, a month before, 30 days before Pesach, won't eat any matzah. Okay? Friday night is less of an issue. So Friday night, a person in theory can have matzah, although many don't. What should you have at your meals? So again, the house is already prepared for Pesach. Your kelim, your vessels, all of your pots and pans are already Pesach. All the food you're going to serve is kosher for Pesach, and all of your utensils. So it's better, obviously, to use plastic especially if you're going to, it's always good to use plastic, my wife says. But if you're going to have chametz on your table, so you want to use plastic. You want to use plastic tablecloths and plasticware to make your life easy. Okay, you don't want to get confused. All the regular dishes are away. Okay, so that's number one. So you can use either chametz, Friday night, or you can use what's called matzah ashira. Now, what is matzah ashira? Matzah ashira is rich matzah or enriched matzah. The Torah refers to matzah as lechem oni, poor man's bread. And there are different interpretations as to what that exactly means. It's broken, it's a burnt piece of bread, and it's broken, and it's made in small batches. Like a poor person, he can't afford to make a lot of, a whole lot of bread at once. He only has a limited amount of flour. Different interpretations as to what exactly that means. It's not rich and fluffy. So matzah, to fulfill the mitzvah, has to be poor man's bread. Then there's another type of matzah that's not called lechem oni. It's not called poor man's bread, but it's not chametz. It's flour that was kneaded together with fruit juices, with wine, perhaps with milk, with eggs, and that is called matzah ashira. And the Talmud says that type of matzah, while you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah at the Seder with that matzah, because it's not called poor man's bread, but it's not chametz, because our sages had a principle that flour kneaded with juice, with fruit juice, cannot become chametz. Now, Ashkenazim, as many know, have the custom not to eat matzah ashira on Passover, once Passover begins, or really maybe already from the morning before Passover. Why? Because there's a concern that, yes, while fruit juice kneaded with flour does not become chametz, but maybe if there's water that got into the mix, that would become chametz. That is the concern. So the custom among Ashkenazim is not to eat matzah ashira at all, except in very specific cases. A person is older, they're infirm, they're sick, they're ill, maybe children who can't digest regular matzah. Matzah ashira, enriched matzah, is easier to digest, what we call egg matzah. Okay? However, even though we Ashkenazim do not eat, I'm going to be a little Ashkenazi-centric, if that's okay with you, Yishai. Well, we Ashkenazim...
I have a lot of Sephardic... Yeah. So some of my best listeners and friends are of the Sephardic persuasion, so we got to give them a nod as well.
We'll address that custom as well. So the custom among Ashkenazim is not to eat matzah ashira during the course of Passover, already from the time when chametz is prohibited. So that would be already from Shabbat morning. Here in Jerusalem, it's about 10 a.m. Your listeners will consult their local calendars to see what time chametz is prohibited. But already from Sof Zman Achilat Chametz, we Ashkenazim do not eat matzah ashira, this enriched matzah. We put it away with the chametz. Although there is an opinion that, no, maybe we can even eat it later in the day. That's the opinion of Aruch HaShulchan and others. And so this year, some will rely on that. We'll get into that in a moment. But Friday night, again, a person can have the Friday night meal, the Shabbat meal, with either bread or matzah ashira. Okay? Technically, even regular matzah, places like hospitals and old age homes and army bases, a lot of times there's a leniency to allow them to eat regular matzah, even on the eve of Passover, even on Erev Pesach, when it's technically prohibited by the rabbis for the reasons we mentioned. But in certain circumstances, since it's only rabbinically prohibited, we allow them to even eat regular matzah if necessary. But certainly matzah ashira, enriched matzah, is a very good alternative. Shabbat morning, the custom is to daven early, to pray early in the morning. In my synagogue, we're going to be praying as early as 6:30 a.m. Someone's got to wake me up. Then if you
that's tricky for you, but here where I live, Chabad, where I pray, which starts at 9:15 on Shabbat morning, it's starting at 7. Okay. So this is really, once again, an element of slavery has entered our pre-Pesach preparation.
So the reason why we pray early this Shabbat is to allow for people to go home and have a meal with bread or with matzah ashira. As we said, we cannot eat chametz already from 10 a.m. and onward. So if you're eating chametz, you want to be able to eat chametz. Or Ashkenazic practice is, according to most opinions, is to already refrain from this enriched matzah as well after 10 a.m.
So what do you do in your house, Rabbi Shimshon?
For Sephardic Jews, it's less of an issue. I personally purchased matzah ashira. I don't like the idea of bringing bread into my home. Once the house is chametz free. So I use matzah ashira. There's a question how much matzah ashira one has to eat, but it has to be.
So you're going to eat that Friday night and Shabbat morning.
We'll eat that Friday night and Shabbat morning, and it's allowed because you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah with it. It's not lechem only. It's not poor man's bread. That's why it's permitted to be eaten Shabbat morning.
And yet it's not chametz, so you do not endanger your household.
It's not chametz. So it's not chametz, but it's not matzah for the purposes of the mitzvah. It's quasi status.
I'm not so familiar with it. What does it taste like?
It's sweet and rich. It's a little, I don't know. You have to try it. I don't know.
It's closer to a bread-like thing?
No, it's definitely matzah. Maybe it's more like a cracker.
Okay.
Okay. It's usually a lot sweeter. In any case, if you're eating chametz or eating matzah shira, you have to dispose of it. As I said, we Ashkenazim stop eating already 10 a.m. eating matzah shira. But if you're using lechem, if you're using bread, I'm forgetting my English. Excuse me. I've been here long enough. I've been here for almost 12 years here in Israel. I'm starting to forget my English. But I still can't speak Hebrew, so I'm completely unintelligible. You have to complete your meal by 10 a.m. Okay? Now, some, by the way, will split the morning meal, which you have to complete by 10 a.m., into two, in order to be able to have Sudat Shlishit, the third Sabbath meal, in order to be able to have it with bread. Okay, or with matzah ashira, they'll split it into two, and what they'll do is, again, we're davening early this week. We're praying at 6:30. We'll be home hopefully by 8:30. The rabbi, myself, I'm not going to give a long speech. I'm not going to speak this week. I'll speak later in the day. So we'll get out. We'll be home hopefully by 8:15 maybe, and we'll be able to have two meals. We'll have one meal. We'll wash. We'll make hamotzi. We'll have a meal, and then we'll bench. We'll say the grace after meals, we'll take a little break, and then we'll have another meal. We'll wash again and have another meal, a second meal, and this will be the third Sabbath meal. First Sabbath meal is the Friday night meal. The second meal is the first morning meal, and then this second morning meal is your third Shabbat meal, and that way you can have it on either bread or on matzah ashira. Careful to finish.
Isn't it okay to just have a third meal without a bread-like thing?
We'll talk about that in a moment. That's the second option. But before we get there, trying to bring some seder, some order to this. Very confusing. Lots of moving parts this year. Before we get there, you have to gather up all the crumbs from this meal. Especially, if you're eating chametz, you want to gather up all those crumbs. Now, we're not going to burn them because it's Shabbat. We can't burn the chametz. But what we're going to do is we're going to gather them up and either dispose of them in a public garbage in the street. Okay? For those of you who have a private garbage can in the United States, I remember when we had those nice little garbage cans, you got to put it in a public garbage can to make sure it's not yours. Or
Rabbi Shimshon, I have you stuck. Are you stuck or am I stuck? Rabbi Shimshon, I have you for a second stuck right now. Are you with us?
Yeah, are we back online?
Yeah, you're back. Go ahead. Yeah, you've returned to me. You've returned. We had an internet let me see if we could get Rabbi Shimshon back. If I can remove him from the stream, maybe. And see if he can come back. If you can hear me, Rabbi Shimshon, please come back by using that link. Let's see if he can come back and reuse that link and come back in. All right. In the meantime, Lou says, we will eat on the Merpeset on Shabbat morning. But what will you be eating, Lou? Will you be eating real chametz, or are you gonna be careful and eat matzah shira. That's my question to you. But yes, indeed, eating in the mirpeset is very smart, and then hopefully get rid of those crumbs. Let's see if we could get. Oh, here he is. Hold on one second. Let's add him. Rabbi Shimshon, you're back.
Oh, yeah. Yishai, this past year, all the challenges that we faced and internet hiccups. Baruch Hashem. Okay.
It's all good. It's all good. The show must go on, Rabbi Shimshon.
Yeah. So Lou Weiss, I see, mentions he's going to eat on his mirpeset, on his porch. Good idea. Okay. Make sure that, people will eat in a different area. They'll eat outdoors. That way they're not mixing up the crumbs with their Pesach dishes or with their pots and pans in the kitchen. Very good idea. When you finish, again, before here in Jerusalem, it's 10 a.m., you want to gather up all those crumbs and dispose them. I think that's where we left off. You want to dispose of them. We're not going to be burning the chametz this year, but you have to dispose of them in another way. So you can put them in a public garbage can. You can scatter them into the wind. The Mishnah says you can scatter them into the wind, or the Mishnah says you can also toss them at sea. Right, toss them at sea, which the contemporary example would be flushing them down the toilet. So that's another option. Okay, these leftover crumbs, and then before the 6th hour, which is 11:27 here in Jerusalem, check your local calendars wherever you are. We will make the final nullification and nullify any chametz in the home that we know about, that we don't know about, whatever we missed. Okay. So if you're nervous, wait a minute, I'm going to have some bread Shabbat morning. What if I miss a crumb? That is considered like the dust of the earth. It's made ownerless. You don't own. Because on Pesach, not only are you not allowed to eat chametz, but you cannot own chametz. You cannot derive benefit from chametz. So many laws related to chametz. Now, Yishai, you asked a question about Seudah Shlishit. So I said some people will divide up the first meal, the morning meal, the early meal, into 2 meals and fulfill Seudah Shlishit that way, because they want to have bread or matzah ashira. But there is an opinion that says, well, Seudah Shlishit, by its very nature, is supposed to be observed in the afternoon, in the late afternoon. So, maybe you cannot observe or fulfill Seudah Shlishit in the morning. So they'll have the meal late in the day. The only problem is, by then already, according to most authorities, you cannot have matzah ashira. So what do you eat? You can't have matzah because it's Erev Pesach, as we explained. You cannot have this enriched matzah because common Ashkenazic practice, standard practice, is already after the morning not to eat it, and you can't have any bread anymore already late in the day. So what do you do? So the Shulchan Aruch says, okay, you can have some meat, some fish, some vegetables, some fruit. You could be yotzei. You can fulfill the mitzvah of the third meal on something other than bread, other than matzah. Sfardim, you asked about your Sephardi listeners. B'nai Eidot HaMizrach, those Jews who came from the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Middle East. So they can actually eat matzah ashira late in the day. There's even an opinion that Ashkenazim as well can, but we only rely on that in case of need. But Sfaradim can have matzah ashira late in the day, but they have to stop before the 10th hour. They can have the matzah ashira before the 10th hour of the day, because we don't want a person to get too full late in the day, because you have to have an appetite for the matzah, as we said before. Okay, so those are the different options for the Shabbat meals. Right? Anyone, by the way, who has any questions, I'm happy to forward you a list of these laws that I've prepared. I'll give my email to your listeners and viewers. They can contact me with any questions related to Pesach or matters of Jewish law. It's rabbinadel@gmail.com. Okay?
But, just that easy. rabbinadel@gmail.com. Just that easy.
It's very easy. And then we move from Shabbat to Pesach. And
wait, just 1 second. Before we make that move, just one quick question that I want to know for myself. For those people who are having the Seudah Shlishit late in the day and not splitting up the morning meal into 2, like just regular whatever small things we're eating there, is there a time that you have to finish by? Like you were saying, but is that the same thing? By the 10th hour, do you have to finish your regular meal?
If a person just has a snack, some vegetables, some fruits, some fish or something late in the day, that's okay. It doesn't have to necessarily be by the 10th hour. They just can't have a meal. So I mentioned that Sfaradim, who are going to eat matzah shira late in the day, which is like a meal on not bread, but on matzah shira. So that's why they have to finish. It's something like maybe 10 to 4 here in Jerusalem. They have to finish that by 10 to 4. If they've already begun, they can continue. Now, there's a question with regards to things like knedlach, because we're allowed. I mentioned we don't eat matzah on Erev Pesach because you're supposed to be excited for it. You're supposed to have an appetite for it. However, you can eat matzah that's ground up and cooked in liquid, like matzah balls or knedlach. That is permitted. And so some people will have like a shalosh shudas with that, even though that's not really bread, but it's permitted to eat. But that should not be eaten late in the day as well. That should be eaten before the 10th hour. It's permitted because it doesn't have the taste of the matzah. It lacks tam matzah. We are stringent when it comes to things baked with matzah or baked with matzah meal, like cakes and cookies, things like that. But the authorities allow matzah balls. Okay, so you want to know what to feed your kids or what to feed yourself? Well, you can keep a pot of soup with chicken and vegetables on the plata from before Shabbat with matzah balls, and you can serve that as well, even late into the day, so long as you finish your matzah balls before the 10th hour of the day. Okay?
Saturday night. Let's head Motzei Shabbat. Seder night.
Yes. Okay, good. So one has to be careful not to do any of the preparations for Passover, whether it's setting the table or cooking the food. You can cook on Yom Tov, of course. But one has to be very careful not to do any of the preparations before the Shabbat ends, before the end of Shabbat. So consult your local calendars, okay? With the end of Shabbat, the people in the home, the women in the home, say, Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh LaKodesh, and then they can begin the preparations for the Seder, and they can light their candles. The candles should be lit from a pre-existing flame, something like a Yahrzeit candle, a memorial candle that was lit before Shabbat, because while it's permitted to kindle on Yom Tov for something that's necessary for cooking, for heating, for lighting candles, it has to be done from a pre-existing flame. We don't strike a match. We don't create new fire on Yom Tov. Instead, on holidays, we light from a pre-existing candle. So the Yom Tov candles must be lit from a candle that was lit from before Shabbat. Okay, that's important to mention. And also, there's a whole discussion among the contemporary authorities with regards to preparing things like already after Shabbat, but maybe certain things that could have been prepared ahead of time should have been prepared ahead of time. Things like, your lettuce, checking your lettuce that you're going to use for maror, roasting your shank bone for the Seder plate, roasting your egg for the Seder plate, preparing the charoset. These things should be done before Shabbat already. That's important to mention, okay? We allow cooking on Yom Tov, but if no one's going to eat the shank bone, so then it's a whole question of roasting it. So these things should be done before Shabbat begins. So this is another thing that's a little bit different this year, where you have to make sure that even before Shabbat, like, on top of everything else, right? making sure that the house is clean and ready for Pesach, you have to prepare the Seder plate and these items already before Shabbat. Okay? The Kiddush is unique this year. It's called Kiddush Yaknehaz, which stands for Yayin Kiddush Ner Havdalah Zman. The Kiddush is going to include a Havdalah because we're transitioning from one type of sanctity to another, from the Kiddush of Shabbat to the Kiddush of Yom Tov. So we include a blessing over a candle. We include the blessing of Havdalah as well in the Kiddush this year. And there's a unique order, Yaknehaz, Yayin Kiddush Ner Havdalah. And it appears in all the Haggadot, in all the Machzorim. So take a look there. And there's a whole discussion what to use for the candles. Some say you can maybe take another candle or a match and hold it up to one of the Yom Tov candles. Others are concerned about extinguishing the candle. So what one can do is just look at the Yom Tov candles, at holiday candles that have been lit, and it suffices with that. Okay,
is that what you do? Is that how you do it?
I do. That's what I do. Yeah, it suffices with that. Others will light some sort of smaller candle this year. a different opinion. As with everything, Rabbi Yishai, it's all a matter of opinion, right?
Well, today we're asking your opinion, Rabbi Shimshon Nadel, and we really do appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure also that I got one thing, which is keeping the food hot. I know this is maybe simple for some, but for others, just want to understand. We traditional Torah observant Jews want to come into the holiday with food that's hot. You're not allowed to keep that food. You're not allowed to prepare that food on Shabbat, but you're allowed to prepare it from Friday or before Shabbat and put it on a plata, a hot plate, and other ways to keep it warm. I just wanted to make sure that you can kind of clarify for us, how do we serve hot food on the Seder Saturday night?
Sure. Look, like on any Shabbat, we warm our foods on a plata, nowadays we have electric hot plates. Dry foods, solid foods can be placed on the hot plate even on Shabbat. Yom Tov is less of an issue because it's already permitted to cook on Yom Tov for Ochel Nefesh. Right? As we said at the beginning, at the outset, there's this mitzvah to enjoy and to rejoice and to celebrate. So it's permitted to cook on Shabbat, on Yom Tov. Excuse me. Oh yeah. Got to be very careful. A lot of moving parts, a lot of confusing elements here. It's permitted to cook on Yom Tov, on the festival. So it's less of an issue. So you can, once Pesach begins, Saturday night, you can cook food. Now, the holiday begins so late already, and until people come back from the synagogue and you want to start the Seder right away, it's a very late night as it is. We spend a lot of time relating the story of the Exodus from Egypt. So it's already a late night. You want to prepare the foods already. As you know, I like to cook, Yishai. I like to cook. I fancy myself a little bit of a chef. So I like to cook. So I'm already going to cook starting, tomorrow and Friday. So, but
everybody's just, every father is jealous right now because they would like just their son-in-law to be a great rabbi and a great family chef. Forget about it. And you still owe us, by the way, your recent important birthday. You still owe us a celebration together, in which we come to one of your barbecues in Yerushalayim. So, and we want to wish you a great happy birthday for that. Let's sum up. I want to let you get back to
answer your question. Just answer your question with regards to heating food. So look, on Yom Tov as well, one can use a hot plate, an electric hot plate, and put food on that. It's not a problem. Even liquids on Yom Tov, since you're allowed to already cook on Yom Tov. Or a person can light a gas stove from a pre-existing flame, like a pilot light. Now, if you have electric ignition, it's a little bit of an issue. You have to disable the electric ignition. But as we said before, you're allowed to kindle from a pre-existing flame, so long as you have a need for it on Yom Tov. You asked me about barbecuing, about making a bonfire. As long as there's a need for light, for heat, or for food, you can kindle from a pre-existing flame on Yom Tov. And so you can cook on Yom Tov and you can heat on Yom Tov, not an issue. The most important thing is to enjoy. Okay?
I was very much looking forward to making a kind of bonfire and doing part of my Seder on my balcony. The only problem is that they're predicting right now something like 37 degrees Fahrenheit. So a very cold Seder, and the weather has been absolutely wild right now. It was warm, now it's cold and windy and very, very dusty. And my friends with allergies, including our beloved Rav Mike Foyer and my good friend Alex and others, are really suffering right now. So I want to wish everybody a kind of strength through this allergic season, and hope that it rains soon and clears up the air so that we can see the glory of the third Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. And the Seder will be together with you, Rabbi Shimshon. If you don't mind adding me to your Chabura for the Korban Pesach in Yerushalayim, that would be great.
Absolutely. We should merit to, as we say in the blessing of redemption, which ends off the Magid section and introduces the second cup of wine. We should merit to rejoice together in the rebuilt city of Jerusalem, in the rebuilt Holy Temple, and there we will eat from the offerings, including the Passover offering, the Korban Pesach. Oh, that's another point which we didn't mention, that in that blessing this year, according to most opinions, one should change the order. And one should say min hazvachim umin hapsachim, but that's for another time. But you follow what's written in your Haggadot, in your Haggadah Shel Pesach. Consult your local rabbi, and as I offered to your listeners, I'm happy to take any questions. They can email me, people text me, they WhatsApp me, they call me. So,
RabbiNadel@gmail.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's the email again.
Rabbi Shimshon, I want to tell you, ask your local rabbi is very good advice, but there's also a global rabbi, and that's what you are by joining us today here on the Yishai Fleischer Show. And you're a rabbi also in Har Nof, and teach all over, including at the OU, and do a lot of writing, including the OU Torah Tidbits and many other places. Rabbi Shimshon Nadel, Rabbi Shimshon Nadel. But you're a local rabbi. I think you think globally but act locally, as Greenpeace taught us many years ago. And I want to thank you so much for being with us. I want to wish you a great Pesach and a happy Yetziat Mitzrayim, a memory of Yetziat Mitzrayim, and to feel ourselves that we are leaving Egypt and the Exodus. And may we exodus from this year of a semi-bondage of the Corona and come out into freedom, something like the Noah's Ark. That the animals in Noah's family were there kind of trapped in isolation for a year in quarantine, and they're coming out. And so, too, we are also coming out here in Eretz Yisrael, and we want to wish blessings and health for the rest of the world.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me, Yishai. This is really a treat. And I got to take a break from all that scrubbing and cleaning and Passover prep. And I'll wish you and the entire Jewish people in the entire world, it should be a time of redemption, both personal and national.
Rabbi Shimshon Nadel, Toda Rabba. Thank you so much, and Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, Chag Kasher v'Sameach.
All right, folks, that was Rabbi Shimshon Nadel. Thank you so much for being with me, and lots of blessings to you from the land of Israel. Lots of blessings to get your house clean, and also for all of you who are not Jewish, but are just part of the story. I want to wish you also a great Passover holiday, and I want you to find a way to celebrate it in which you too feel like you have been part of that exodus, that you understand that the birth of the Jewish people as a nation and the liberation of the Jewish people from Egyptian slavery and the receiving of the Torah, which is what Shavuot is about, is also a light unto the nations, which you are spreading as well, and you are part of this great and amazing story and part of God's great vision. And I am honored to be part of your life. And I'd love to hear from all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, Israel and friends of Israel. Write me an email, yishai@yishaifleischer.com or yishai@thelandofisrael.com. And if you're listening on podcast, many more things are coming on the show today, including audio from my latest discussion with Benjamin Anthony from the Miriam Institute. It was really fun to talk to him about the future of settling for more. And not settling for less, settling for more for Jewish rights in Judea. God bless all of you. Thanks again to Lou and all the friends that are with us. Catherine says, Toda Rabba and Chag Sameach, which means thank you very much and happy holiday, happy pilgrimage holiday. God bless you guys and see you in Yerushalayim. Shalom, shalom from the land of Israel and blessings from the land of blessings.